I think the first is communication, how you have to change your communication to work with teams and understand the pressures that people are on, because you can't physically look in their eyes or see where they are in the office. The second is the tools and technology, I guess the infrastructure that you need to be able to do it well, because a lot of companies weren't necessarily set up, I think, perfectly for remote when this happened. The third would be culture. So how do you actually create a togetherness and engaging culture between the people that are working, who are all in very different places with lots of other things to juggle during that day, whether it's childcare or elderly relatives or going for groceries when they know the stores are quiet. So it's understanding that whole work-life integration piece. And then the last one I would say is visibility and workflow. So how do you actually know where things are and how they're getting done if you haven't got systems that are used to giving visibility about where things are in the process? We always have video on. So we make sure that everybody is there and present, and we're very intentional about the communication, because otherwise I think people can hover into the background, have video off, and then they're not really present in a conversation, which isn't like a meeting where people are obviously looking at each other and interacting. You need to adapt your style. A thing that's always been very important to me from leadership is emotional intelligence, or EQ. Which I think is, over the last few years, has become a lot more prevalent and talked about in leadership. But I think in a remote environment, it is super important, because you need to read the signals. You need to actually look out for people that are a bit quiet, because it's more difficult to actually sense that when you're not in an office walking around, when you don't see people in a meeting room around a table. So I think EQ is exceptionally important, and communication needs to be a lot more intentional and more concise, because when people are only receiving comms all day long, you've got to imagine that that's overload. So how does a leader think about the human emotional aspect of what is actually happening behind the screen? So I kind of ask permission about when they want to interact, or is it okay for us to talk about something rather than just stick a meeting in their diary?
I think as a VA, you have to think more as a manager or a leader for your element in the business, just being really open to the communication, being prepared to revisit it, and checking in. As a VA, it's really important to say, what's happening with you now? How's your day? Everything going okay? If you're prepared to manage your day and your diary and all the rest of it, I think it's a really efficient and really beneficial way of getting the balance between the two. The lack of distraction and the ability to control kind of who enters your working space is really empowering, and can really allow you to focus on what the priorities are and where you want to be focused that day. And obviously you're much more responsible for the space that you're in. So I think challenge-wise, it's making sure that you don't feel the need to justify yourself, and you don't find yourself stuck at your desk all day.
It's very important that the culture of a business acknowledges that when a mass of people are working at home, there needs to be more flexibility, because it's expected and understood that they will probably work a little bit later in order to deliver what they need to. And the focus becomes on contribution rather than presenteeism. When there's restrictions and there's constraints on people, it's actually when you often see the best innovation in people. Innovation and thinking about how to do things differently and better can be done now, because you haven't got as many meetings filling your diary, or as many things that you may have done. You haven't got the commute. Maybe you can do some more self-learning. You can listen to that podcast or jump onto an e-learning platform.
Look at CPD, look at, TED Talks, look at things that might be able to help you to be better at working with your team. But also those things like personality quizzes that can help you understand the different personalities within the team that you work with. You can get those for free, and they can just help you understand how those people approach things, how they deal with things, and that can help you better